My wife is cheating on me with my tennis partner, so I hired someone to frame him in her eyes and get her back to me. Playing tennis can reveal a lot about a person's character. Polite players often carry that demeanor into their daily lives. I once witnessed a man behave terribly on the court, and later learned he abandoned his family for another man's wife. Marcus Fisher, a former football player who turned to tennis after a knee injury, plays with an aggressive style. I can beat him by staying close to the net and forcing him to overhit. However, his dubious line calls always seem to work in his favor, and he eagerly seeks matches with me to avoid the embarrassment of losing to someone smaller. At 6 feet tall, I don't consider myself small, but next to Marcus' 63 frame and 75-pound advantage, I feel dwarfed. Avoiding Marcus is nearly impossible, since we both live in the same North Atlanta neighborhood, where the tennis community is strong. Fortunately, I also get to play with great people like my mixed doubles partner, Elma Pennington. My wife, Holly, who teaches Pilates, introduced us. Though Holly isn't into tennis, she knew Elma needed a partner, and we've been playing together for about a year. Today's match was at a club in Stone Mountain, so I offered to drive Elma, accounting for the usual Saturday traffic, and we left 45 minutes early. As she came out of her house, I couldn't help but wonder again why she was still single. She had lost her husband in a car accident 3 years ago, and after mourning, she joined Holly's Pilates class and returned to tennis. Now, she's a fit and attractive woman in her early 30s. Yet she keeps telling Holly that she just hasn't met the right guy yet. "Hey, Elma," I greeted as she got into the car. "Ready to win today?" She smiled confidently as we discussed our game plan, while I navigated onto I-285. But our conversation was interrupted by a call from our opponent, informing us that a rainstorm had hit, making the courts unplayable. We had to reschedule. Elma looked disappointed, so I suggested we head back to our club to practice, hoping to find someone there for a game. As we approached Eden Point, I decided to take a quick detour to my house to grab my check for the club dues. After parking, I hurried inside, knowing exactly where the check was. But as I walked down the hall, I heard unexpected sounds coming from the master bedroom. "Please do that again." Yes, just like that. That was Holly's voice. What on earth? Moving quietly, I crept to the door and peeked inside. Holly was lying on the bed without clothes, and a man was with her, using his mouth and hands. It felt like I had been hit by a car. Stunned, I stood there, unable to think or move. Everything had changed in an instant, and I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing. Then the man stood up and raised Holly's legs to make it easier for him. This can't be happening, I thought, as I recognized Marcus Fisher. I staggered away from the door, feeling like I had been punched. It was too overwhelming. My first instinct was to storm into the room and confront them. But what good would that do, I thought in despair. They'd already betrayed me. Hitting him wouldn't change that. Besides, even if I landed the first punch, he's so much bigger that he'd probably beat me badly. Still, I couldn't just let him get away with this. As I stood there, it hit me that Elma was waiting in the car. Oh no, I need to get her home first. Then I can come back and deal with this. I walked down the hall and out the front door in a daze, feeling nauseous. Elma watched me through the car window, concerned. I quickly got into the driver's seat and started the car. My face must have looked awful, as Elma asked if I was okay. Unable to speak, I gripped the steering wheel tightly and drove to her place. After parking, I muttered that I couldn't play today. Elma, worried, asked what had happened. When I stayed silent, she turned off the ignition, took the keys, and insisted I come inside and explain. Elma, trying to be supportive, suggested that maybe that's why Marcus took Holly's Pilates class. Shocked, I realized I had never mentioned it to her. My mind raced with questions as I tried to prepare for Holly's reactions and the potential confrontation with Marcus. When I walked in through the kitchen door, Holly must have heard me because she came out to greet me, wearing her robe and with her hair wrapped in a towel. She cheerfully asked, "You're home early. How did the match go?" "We got rained out," I said sharply. "I'm sorry you didn't get to play," she replied. I bet Elma was really disappointed. I just stared at her, not interested in small talk. "The rain delay was announced right after we left," I said softly. Her expression remained unchanged, even though she blinked. "I came back to the house," I continued, my heart racing. "I saw you and Marcus together." Holly's reaction was nothing like what I had expected. "I'm sorry you had to see that," she said calmly. "Is that all you can say?" I asked, stunned. "You're cheating on me, and all you can say is you're sorry?" "I saw it." Aren't you going to apologize for being with him? How long has this been going on? Do you even have an explanation? She crossed her arms and sighed deeply. Sit down, Michael, she said, pointing to the breakfast table. I'd rather stand, I replied, irritated. Do as you wish, she said, taking a seat. I was left speechless by her lack of emotion. Michael, we were going to tell you soon anyway, but this just speeds things up. I'm leaving you. Marcus and I are in love, and I'm moving in with him. We'll get married as soon as the divorce is finalized. I chose to sit down. I didn't want to risk collapsing before I could respond. She quickly said, "Wait here," and went back toward our bedroom. A few moments later, she returned with a stack of papers, which she pushed across the table to me. This doesn't have to be nasty, she said. I don't want any alimony from you. I've taken all the money from our savings, but that's only fair since I'm leaving you the house. This deal is better than what you'd get in court, but if you sign these papers, we can all move on with our lives. Looking at the stack of papers, I realized it was a divorce petition. Have you already talked to a lawyer? I asked, shocked. What about our marriage? What happened to the last decade we've spent together? I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't plan for this, it just happened. You need to accept it for what it is. Accept it? I yelled. Accept that my wife is sleeping with that jerk Marcus Fisher in our own bed? Accept that our marriage is ending just like that? She got up. I'm disappointed, Michael. I expected you to handle this more maturely. Then she turned and walked back to the bedroom. Sitting at the table, I stared at the divorce papers, trying to grasp what was happening. If someone had asked me this morning, I would have said I loved my wife and we had a good marriage. Now I'm finding out she's leaving me for another man. It's a real shock. In the quiet, I heard the beep of a cell phone and snippets of conversation. He saw us. About what you'd expect. That would be good. When she came back, she was dressed and carrying an overnight bag and a makeup kit. Since you've pushed the issue, I'm not staying here tonight. Marcus is coming to pick me up. We'll come back on Monday while you're at work to get the rest of my stuff. So you're just leaving like this? It has to be this way, she said. Fine, I said, feeling bitter. What should I tell our friends? She sighed. Michael, Marcus, and I haven't done anything wrong, and we're not going to hide. We'll keep up with our social activities. In fact, we'll probably be at the Eden Point reception tomorrow night. You don't need to tell anyone anything because they'll all find out soon enough. At that moment, I heard a horn beep outside. Holly glanced out the window. Marcus is here, she said. I'm leaving now. Before closing the door, she looked back at me. Just sign the papers, Michael. The sooner you do, the better it will be for everyone. Then she left. The sound of my cell phone ringing jolted me, and I answered quickly, though I think I was hoping to hear Holly's voice. It was Elma calling. How are you holding up, Michael? She asked. Not too well, I answered. She's left me. I know, she said. You know? I asked, shocked. How did you find out? I'm sorry, Michael, she said, sounding upset. Marcus has been bragging about it at the clubhouse. Oh, great, I thought. It's already making the rounds. On Sunday, I stayed inside, hiding from reality. When did things go wrong? Married life seemed easy. I got a great job in Atlanta, and Holly became an aerobics instructor. After saving for a few years, we bought a house in Eden Point. I thought we were happy. I got promotions, and Holly started a successful Pilates studio. We made friends and planned to start a family. Our bedroom life had slowed down, which I attributed to our busy lives. But looking back, I realized things had really tapered off in the past 6 months. Holly seemed distant, but I hadn't noticed. On Monday, I called my lawyer's office to update my will. At the office, Jonathan, my lawyer and former classmate, read the documents Holly had given me. He advised me to sign the agreement right away, explaining that Holly's offer was generous and much better than what I'd get if we fought it out. Though it felt like giving in, if the marriage was over, this was the best deal I was likely to get. Jonathan was right after everything. I didn't want to stay married to Holly anymore. It felt like Holly and Marcus had won a game I didn't know was being played. Jonathan assured me that signing the settlement agreement immediately would solidify Holly's proposal. If she had second thoughts, I'd still have 30 days to cancel the divorce. I signed. Back at the office, I updated my benefits at Human Resources. There were plenty of changes to make regarding my health insurance, 401k, and other benefits tied to a spouse. That evening, I found Holly had taken everything she wanted from the house, leaving behind items she no longer used. Our good china, serving pieces, utensils, carving knives, some furniture, and portions of our CD and DVD collections were gone. She had left our wedding album, which felt more disheartening than everything else. I had thoughts of violence, imagining baseball bats, brass knuckles, hitmen, and car bombs, but then reality hit me. Did I want to ruin my life for revenge on a sleazy womanizer and an unfaithful wife? By Friday, I decided to rejoin the world. I hadn't done anything wrong, and there was no reason to hide. I called Elma, and she admitted our situation was the hot topic of the neighborhood. Marcus and Holly were at the clubhouse every night, with Marcus bragging and Holly clinging to him. It was disgusting, and Elma had ended her friendship with Holly. I asked about the others. Elma explained that some people disliked Marcus and Holly. Some followed Marcus around, and most found the situation awkward and stayed out of it. I wish the community had done something dramatic, but I was determined to move forward. On Saturday, I arrived at the tennis courts. When the captain of our mixed doubles team saw me, she hurried over, apologizing for a last-minute lineup change and offering to understand if I didn't want to play. I was confused until she explained that Marcus and his partner were our opponents. I thought, great, that's the last thing I wanted. Elma arrived, her face turning white. She whispered that we could forfeit and play someone else next week, but I refused, deciding to face Marcus now. Elma looked concerned, but I assured her we were ready to play. The game was a disaster. My performance was the worst in years, and Elma struggled because of my frustration. Marcus played exceptionally well, hitting powerful shots and taunting me throughout the match. His comments about my weak shots and jabs about my wife fueled my anger. The match attracted a crowd, and I saw Holly by the fence. She cringed at some of Marcus' remarks but didn't look at me. During one moment, I served a weak second serve, and Marcus fired it directly at Elma, hitting her shoulder. I rushed to confront him, but Elma stopped me, insisting it was just part of the game. I glared at Marcus as he pretended to adjust his shoelace, feeling frustrated and defeated. The final score was 62-61, a humiliating loss. I gritted my teeth as I walked to the net to shake hands. Marcus's partner apologized for his behavior, but Marcus ignored the handshake and said, "That was fun. Let's do it again next time you're up for a beating." He then kissed Holly over the fence. Elma quickly grabbed my arm, sensing my anger. "He's trying to provoke you, Michael. Don't let him get to you." I promised myself I wouldn't tolerate their behavior anymore and needed to come up with a plan. Lying on the bed, I remembered my old tennis coach's advice: play to your opponent's weakness. Applying it to my situation was challenging. The next morning at work, I had a possible solution. It might cost a lot, I thought, but if it works, it'll be worth it. Around mid-morning, I called our top sales guy, Jerry, and invited him to lunch. I asked if he had ever used an escort service for personal reasons. He initially seemed puzzled and reminded me it was against company policy. I clarified that this wasn't about work, but something personal. Understanding dawned on Jerry's face. He mentioned a top service in the city known for catering to high rollers with high rates and top-notch services, warning they might be expensive. I assured him I could handle the budget and asked for details. Over burgers and drinks, Jerry provided all the information I needed. Calling the number Jerry had provided, a friendly male voice answered, "Hello, how can I assist you?" "I'd like to speak with Mr. Henry Miller," I replied, following the instructions. "This is Mr. Miller," came the response. "What can I do for you?" "I'm looking for something from the Grove Press," I answered. "May I have your name, please?" Mr. Miller asked. I considered using a fake name, but Jerry had been very clear about the need to use my real identity. "They're always cautious about the Vice Squad," he had explained. "They take extra measures to ensure you're not an undercover cop trying to set them up." So I gave Mr. Miller my actual name. "Are you calling from your office?" Mr. Miller inquired. "Yes," I answered. "But this is a personal issue and doesn't involve my company." "I understand completely, sir. Could you provide the switchboard number for your workplace?" he asked. "Sure," I said, "but wouldn't it be better to have my direct line?" "No," he responded. "I'll call the main number and ask for you, which helps verify your identity." That's pretty smart, I thought. By calling the main line, hell no, he's reaching a real company, not a police station. If the operator transfers his call to me, it'll confirm I work there. It's not foolproof, but it's a good method. I provided him with the main switchboard number, and he ended the call right away. A few minutes later, my phone rang, and the operator transferred the call to me. It was Mr. Miller. Next, he requested my cell phone number. This will allow us to reach you outside of business hours if needed, he explained. After giving him my number, he continued, Now that we've sorted out the identification, please let me know how we can assist you. I need a very special companion who can be available for multiple occasions over the next month or so, I said. The voice replied. That's a bit unusual. We don't typically arrange services for such extended periods. We might be able to accommodate you, but it will be costly. He quoted a price that shocked me. I swallowed hard. That's fine, Mr. Miller. All right. Do you have any specific requirements? He asked. Yes, I said. She needs to look like a goddess. He laughed. Beauty is subjective, sir, but I believe we can find someone who meets your expectations. He then asked, Do you have a pen handy? When I confirmed that I did, he gave me the address for their website. I noticed the URL began with HTTPS, indicating a secure connection. After I noted it down, he amusingly instructed me to use Anais Nin as the username when prompted and provided a numerical password. Keep in mind, sir, that both the username and password will change once you've made your selection. This is to ensure both your security and ours. When I confirmed, the representative explained my credit card would be charged after selecting a companion and scheduling a session. A 25 gratuity was also customary. I hoped this plan would work to avoid ending up broke and embarrassed. The representative told me to visit their website to make my selection and ended the call. That evening, I accessed the service's website with the provided login. The main page featured stunning images resembling a Victoria's Secret catalog. Trusting Jerry's recommendation, I proceeded. I intended to choose a blonde, but a dark-haired woman named Rana caught my eye. I clicked on her profile, confirmed the meeting, and entered my credit card details. The screen went black, logging me out. Trying to revisit the site, I found my login credentials no longer worked. Their strict security impressed me, giving me confidence in their service. The next day, I anxiously awaited Rana's call. At times, I considered backing out due to the high cost and uncertain outcome. However, a visit to the break room where two secretaries stopped talking and looked away when I entered reminded me of the office gossip. The sting of being their topic strengthened my resolve. I refused to remain a victim. It wasn't until after dinner that my cell phone rang. Answering it, I heard a pleasant voice say, Hi, Michael, this is Rana. I am excited about meeting you. I suggested we meet for dinner to go over my request. Here we go, I thought. The grill wasn't crowded, fitting my needs perfectly. When she walked in, it felt like all eyes were on her. She approached confidently, shook my hand, and introduced herself. Her presence was stunning, making me stare in awe. She chuckled and asked how she looked. Her dark eyes, high cheekbones, full lips, and athletic yet feminine figure were mesmerizing. Rana smiled, breaking the silence. I mumbled an apology, feeling embarrassed. The waitress, captivated by Rana, asked if she was on television. Rana replied pleasantly, No, I'm afraid not. Their exchange helped me regain my composure. I asked why she wasn't modeling or on TV. She explained that while she had considered it, the competition was fierce. In her current field, she stood out and earned top pay from the start. By the time her looks faded, she'd have enough savings to live comfortably. She might even find a wealthy man who wanted a trophy wife. I nodded, recognizing her practical approach to her career, even if I didn't agree with it. Just then, the waitress brought our meals. After serving Rana, she looked at her once more and asked, Are you sure you're not on TV? I have this feeling I've seen you before. Rana shook her head. I don't think so. If I had been on TV, I'd remember. I had to stifle my laughter as the waitress hurried away. As we started eating, Rana studied me closely. So, Michael, why don't you tell me what you're looking for? Henry mentioned that this request is a bit unusual. Feeling embarrassed, I began to explain my situation. When I recounted the conversation I had with Holly after catching her and Marcus together, Rana looked at me with sympathy. That was pretty harsh, she said. When I described Marcus Fisher and his behavior, she nodded in understanding. I've encountered many like him. After delicately wiping her mouth, she folded her hands on the table. So, what exactly do you want to achieve? And what's my role in all this? For the next 15 minutes, I laid out my plan for the coming month. I confessed that I had many doubts about the success of my scheme, but I couldn't just sit by and let them walk all over me without trying to fight back. Meeting you has made me think this might actually work. Her face lit up with a big smile. What a nice compliment, she said. Then she leaned in closer across the table. You know what? I think I'm going to enjoy this. Awesome, I replied enthusiastically, reaching out to shake her hand to finalize our agreement. She laughed and gave me a firm handshake in return. To partners in crime, she said with a mischievous grin. She shifted her position, and suddenly her presence was incredibly alluring. It hit me that I was aroused. Well, she said in a sultry tone, since we've wrapped up the business part, should we move to somewhere more intimate for the fun part? My mouth went dry, and I had to sip some water before I could respond. No, I said. Tonight is just for us to get to know each other. She gave me a playful smile. You don't find me attractive? Oh no, I stammered. I mean, yes, I do find you attractive, but I'm trying to stay focused on what we're here for. It's better if we don't mix things up, but I do have extra for you. I slid an envelope filled with cash across the table. She took the envelope with a serious expression and put it in her purse. Then she changed her stance, and her seductive aura seemed to fade. I think I understand, Michael, she said, tilting her head slightly. You're quite an interesting man. I'm looking forward to our little adventure. With that, she got up and left, leaving me alone in the booth. I felt drained for some reason. What a woman, I thought. Phase 1 of Operation Honey Trap was set to start on Saturday just after lunch. The weather was already warming up in Atlanta, and I expected a big crowd at the Eden Point pool. Although I was anxious about whether Rana would show up, a BMW Z4 pulled into my driveway just after noon. She arrived with a small bag and, noticing my raised eyebrows, said, "My swimwear." She looked around and smiled. "So this is suburbia. Do you like it here?" I frowned. I used to, but not so much lately. She patted my cheek. "We're going to change that." We parted ways at the clubhouse to head to the locker rooms and change into our swimsuits. As planned, I came out first and set up 2 lounge chairs next to a table with an umbrella. Just as I got settled, I noticed Marcus walking toward me. "Well, Michael," he shouted, "I didn't expect to see you here at the pool today. I thought you'd be out taking a lesson from the pro to work on your tennis." Even though I knew he was trying to provoke me, I kept my response calm. "Nope. Today, my girlfriend and I are here to relax by the pool and catch some sun." Marcus wasn't going to let it go that easily. "Oh, so you've got a girlfriend now? I'd like to meet her." Our conversation was starting to attract attention from people nearby, but that didn't bother me. "You're in luck, Marcus. She's just about to join us," I said, pointing to the entrance of the women's locker room. Everyone fell silent as Rana approached us. I had expected her to be in a bikini, but she surprised me with a one-piece swimsuit. It was made from a shiny, silvery material that caught the sunlight, drawing everyone's gaze. The clicking of her stiletto-heeled slippers made me realize how stunning her legs, calves, and figure looked. As she got closer, I pulled my eyes away from her legs to focus on her swimsuit. It seemed to be made of the thinnest material I'd ever seen, clinging to every curve of her body. It was so sheer it looked like it was painted on her. She reached me, hooked her arm through mine, pressed her chest against my bicep, and kissed me on the cheek. "Oh, great, honey," she purred. "You got us a spot." Then she turned to Marcus. "Who's your friend, Michael?" I caught sight of Marcus and couldn't help but laugh when I saw his jaw drop as he took in Rana. "Rana," I said. "Meet Marcus." "Marcus, this is my girlfriend, Rana." His jaw snapped back up, and he quickly reached out to shake her hand. "Welcome to Eden Point," he said with a flourish. "If you need anything, just let me know." With a sweet smile, Rana responded, "Oh, that's so kind." She then turned to me and asked with a hint of flirtation, "Is everyone here as friendly as Marcus?" "Nope," I replied dryly. "Marcus is one of a kind." She flashed another smile at Marcus. "Thanks for making me feel so welcome." When he didn't immediately move, she gently said, "You can let go of my hand now." Embarrassed, he stammered, "Oh well, I need to head out. I hope to see more of you, Rana. I hope to see you around." He then awkwardly walked back to the other side of the pool, glancing over his shoulder repeatedly. I looked in that direction and noticed Holly sitting with her arms crossed, looking displeased. Rana and I settled into our lounge chairs. She took my hand and pulled me closer to whisper, "I think that went pretty well." I squeezed her hand and told her, "You were amazing." She gave me a quick kiss on the lips, which I knew was meant to be friendly, but I could still feel her lips even after 15 minutes. Next, she lay face down on the lounge chair and asked, "Michael, Can you put some sunscreen on me? As I did so, I was pretty sure I heard some disapproving murmurs from nearby. Over the next few hours, it seemed like everyone at the pool made it a point to pass by and check out my new girlfriend. I'm certain all the guys from my tennis team came by, and I made sure to introduce them to Rana. She handled each introduction with ease, chatting like she was already friends with everyone. At one point, I leaned in and whispered, "You should have gone into politics." She just grinned and winked at me. "In my job, I'm just one step away," she replied. I laughed heartily. As things quieted down, Rana leaned in closer to me. "Which one is she?" she asked. I immediately knew who she meant and pointed Holly out across the pool. "Great," she said. "Let me handle this." Putting on her high-heeled mules, she made her way over to Holly with a rhythmic click. Bending forward, she removed her shoes and performed a smooth dive into the shallow end. When she came up, she dipped her head down and then flipped it back, sending her hair into a beautiful spray. I was mesmerized. I'd seen that move in commercials, but never in person. It was breathtaking. With a single fluid motion, Rana pulled herself out of the water and onto the deck. Standing there with water dripping down her body, she pushed her hair back, drawing attention to her cleavage. She then slipped her mules back on, adding 4 inches to her height, and walked back towards me, leaving me staring in awe. Reluctantly, I turned my gaze from Rana to Holly, who was glaring at me with anger. Holly then snapped at Marcus, and grabbing her things, headed for the exit. Marcus trailed behind her, casting occasional glances back at Rana. Rana elegantly reclined in a lounge chair with her eyes closed and quietly murmured, "Mission accomplished." As we were about to leave, I suddenly noticed Elma heading my way. Oh no, I thought. I forgot about Elma's women's team playing today. What do I say? "Hi, Michael. It's great to see you out and about. Maybe we can catch up and play some more." Elma stopped in her tracks when Rana stood up and took my arm. "Oh," Elma said, surprised. "Who's this?" This is Rana. My date," I replied, feeling a bit awkward. Elma stared at Rana in silence for a moment, then extended her hand. "I'm Elma," she said. "Nice to meet you." She looked back at me. "I need to get cleaned up. I'm pretty dirty from our match. See you later, Michael." Without waiting for a response, she hurried off. Rana looked at me with curiosity. "Who was that?" I replied. "That's Elma Pennington. She's my partner for mixed doubles." "Interesting," she said. I kicked myself mentally for not planning ahead on how to handle Elma. I didn't want to reveal my intentions or give Elma the wrong idea. This was frustrating. Soon after, Rana and I decided to call it a day. I felt like we had achieved everything we set out to do. As we left the pool area, I could swear the chatter around us picked up noticeably. Back at my house, I let Rana use the shower while I dried off and reflected on the afternoon. Besides the unexpected encounter with Elma, everything had gone even better than I'd hoped. I had shown Holly that I wasn't just going to mope around after she left. More importantly, I demonstrated that I had moved on to someone even better. Let her think about that for a while, I thought triumphantly. "So how do you think it went?" Rana's voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see her wrapped in a bath towel. "You were perfect," I said excitedly. "You exceeded all my expectations." With a playful move, she let the towel fall to her feet. "Would you like to celebrate?" she asked with a coy smile. I gasped, realizing I had been holding my breath. Taking a deep breath, I walked over to her, bent down, and handed her the towel she had dropped. "Sorry, Rana, it's just not the right time." She smiled and replied, "That's okay. I was just testing you." After draping the towel over her shoulder, she walked away from me. I hadn't had a chance to see her from behind before. When she returned, she was dressed and had her bag ready. I handed her a sealed envelope. "Thank you so much," I said sincerely. "Today was perfect." She tilted her head in that distinctive way she had and asked, "Do you want to get back with Holly?" I flinched at the question. "No," I replied firmly. "That wasn't just a mistake or a moment of weakness. She threw me away like I was nothing, and I'd never take her back under any circumstances." "That's what I figured," she said. "I was just curious. So, are we still on for next week?" "Definitely," I said with a wide grin. Throughout the week, I made sure to attend tennis practice at the club. I wanted everyone to see that I was done hiding. "Good to see you back and making an impact," our team captain said. My teammates greeted me with pats on the back and knowing winks. I overheard someone say, "Lucky son of a gun." I smiled, knowing Rana had made quite an impression. A few days later, I showed up for mixed doubles practice, but Elma was nowhere to be found. Our captain mentioned she had called in sick. Once I got home, I immediately called her. Are you okay, Elma? I asked. It's unusual for you to be sick. Oh, it's nothing serious. Just a minor bug going around, she replied. Do you need anything? I offered. I'd be happy to bring it over. No thanks, she said quickly. I don't need anything. It's better if you stay away so you don't catch this bug. All right, I said with some hesitation. But if you start feeling worse, call me immediately. I'm worried about you. She gave a noncommittal response and mentioned she needed to rest, so I let her go. I wasn't thrilled about it. Elma had always been so healthy and lively that it bothered me to think she might be unwell, and our little encounter at the pool last Saturday might not have helped, I thought. I was still unsure about revealing my honey trap plan to her, fearing it might mess things up, but I hated the idea of Elma misunderstanding the situation. I hope she'll understand once it's all over, I thought. The next phase of my plan was set for the upcoming weekend. The club was hosting a potluck dinner, and Rana and I were going to attend. When she showed up at my house, she was dressed quite differently from our last outing. Wow, you look like you just stepped out of a fashion magazine, I remarked as I took in her appearance. She was in a casual outfit, a skirt, a jacket, and a blouse, but everything about it, from the materials to the style and accessories, screamed high fashion. With a playful curtsy, she said, "Thank you, kind sir. These are new from Nordstrom's, but don't worry if you don't recognize the labels. Tonight my main focus is the ladies, especially one lady in particular. I can speak for the wives, but I'm sure you'll still make quite an impression on the men," I told her honestly. As we arrived at the clubhouse parking lot, Rana turned to me and said, "We need to change our approach tonight. Let's split up and mingle with the guests. That way I can do what I need to do." Sounds good to me, I agreed. As we stepped onto the patio where dinner was being served, it was clear that we had both been correct. The men continued to gawk openly as Rana walked past. The wives were more reserved, but still made plenty of remarks about Rana's outfit. A few of the more outgoing women even approached her to ask where she got her clothes, and Rana quickly found herself chatting and sharing shopping tips with them. After mingling for a while, Rana and I reconvened for dinner. "How's it going?" I asked her quietly. "Well, I've been quite busy," she replied seriously. "I've learned a lot about what the wives think of the situation with you, Holly, and Marcus. More importantly, I've made things difficult for your ex and have been flirting quite a bit with her fiancé. She's definitely not happy about that." I couldn't help but smile. It was clear that Rana knew exactly how to play her cards. While I was talking with one of my teammates, Holly came by and signaled for me to follow her. When she turned to face me, her face was flushed with anger. "Looks like you didn't waste any time getting back into the dating scene," she said with irritation. "I didn't realize there was a waiting period," I replied with a hint of sarcasm. "Really? It seems to me that you're punching above your weight with her. Where did you find her? I never met her when we were together." "I met her through work," I said casually. "You might want to be careful," she warned. "She looks like she could be too much for you to handle." I couldn't resist responding. "Actually, Holly, I handle her just fine." "Is that so?" she snapped. "You better keep her away from Marcus." With that, she stormed off. I smiled to myself. Everything was unfolding just as I had planned. Just then, I noticed Elma carrying a tray of food. Although I knew she was on the entertainment committee, I wasn't sure if she'd be well enough to attend tonight. I quickly went over and took her arm. She blushed when she saw me. "I'm really glad to see you're feeling better," I told her. "You should have called me to let me know you'd be here tonight." "I wasn't sure until the last minute, Michael. Besides, I figured you'd be with your new girlfriend, and I didn't want to interrupt." At that moment, Rana walked by, laughing and chatting with one of my teammates. "Looks like I was right," Elma said, clearly irritated. She began to walk away, but I stopped her by grabbing her arm. "Hold on, Elma. We need to discuss our next match." After a brief pause, she seemed to make up her mind. "Actually, Michael, things have gotten really busy for me lately, so I've decided to drop mixed doubles and focus only on the women's team." I was taken aback. "You can't do that, Elma," I exclaimed. "Who will be my partner now?" Elma glanced past me, and I turned to see Rana standing nearby. "You'll find someone, Michael," Elma said. "Now let me go. I need to get this food out." Once I released her, she quickly walked away. Rana took my hand and guided me to an empty table. After we sat down, she leaned in and whispered, "Just so you know, that girl has feelings for you." What? No way. That's absurd. She's just my tennis partner. She was in Holly's Pilates class, and if I'm not mistaken, Rana continued, disregarding my denial, you might have some feelings for her as well. I don't, I argued. You're completely wrong about that. She's just a good friend. Maybe, she said, clearly doubtful. Anyway, I think we've done enough for tonight, so let's head out. Back at my house, I asked Rana to fill me in on what had happened with Holly and Marcus. She gave me a smug smile. I went over to where they had the food and made some nice comments about it. Holly clearly didn't like me being there, but she couldn't do much about it. Then I complimented her outfit, which forced her to return the favor. I told her where I bought it, and I could see she recognized the brand and knew how expensive it must have been. She didn't say anything, but her eyes were practically green with envy. That sounds just like Holly, I remarked. She's really into fashion and takes pride in her clothing choices. Then Rana went on. One of the other women asked Holly to help in the kitchen. Even though she didn't want to, Holly had to leave me alone with Marcus. As soon as she was gone, I took the opportunity to sample their dish again. While she spoke, Rana mimicked her actions. She bent over slightly, causing her blouse to fall away and reveal her ample cleavage, barely held in place by a thin bra. Then she made a scooping gesture with her finger, tasted it with a suggestive slurp, and stared at me with such intensity that I could almost feel the heat. Standing up straight, she flashed a grin, clearly enjoying the effect she'd had. Once I had Marcus' attention, I really started flirting with him. I asked if he'd played football, which gave him a chance to brag. While he was boasting, I ran my hand over his chest, commented on how much bigger he was compared to you, and told him I like big men. She chuckled. I thought he was going to lose it right there at the table. Wow, I said. It's no surprise Holly was so hostile. I do what I can, she said, with a hint of false modesty. And I can't believe Marcus actually thought you were hitting on him, I added. She laughed scornfully. Men like Marcus are so full of themselves that they never doubt a woman's interest. The ironic part is they're often the worst lovers. I couldn't help but smile at that. If what Rana said was true, it would serve Holly right. I handed her the envelope. Do you think we're set for the next phase? Absolutely. The club's dance will be perfect for our plans. She then headed toward the front door. What, no seduction attempt tonight? I asked with a grin. She shot a playful smile over her shoulder. I wouldn't dream of it. Then, with a playful swing of her hips, she left, leaving me feeling a jolt of excitement. After Rana left, I cracked open a beer and settled down to think about everything that was going on. On one hand, I felt pretty good about how well the honey trap was working. Even though Holly had moved on, I knew she wasn't too thrilled about how quickly I'd found someone new, especially since my new girlfriend was way more attractive than Holly had ever been. While that was satisfying, I couldn't shake the concern about Elma. Could Rana be right, I wondered? Do I actually have feelings for Elma? From the first time Holly introduced us, I'd always liked Elma. She was slim, athletic, graceful, and had a friendly, outgoing personality. Yet I'd always kept our relationship strictly friendly and professional, mostly because of Holly. I assumed Elma felt the same way, especially since she was still dealing with her husband's death. Reflecting on Rana's comments about Elma, I found myself questioning their validity. If Elma was interested in me, why was she avoiding me? And why did that bother me so much? For that matter, why had I turned down the chance to be with an incredibly attractive woman? Could my feelings for Elma be influencing this? Eventually, I gave up trying to figure it out and went to bed. Even if I had the answers, I wouldn't have known what to do next. I decided to stick with the plan I'd set in motion and keep focused. The annual spring dance at the club was a big event that always drew a large crowd. The women dressed up for the occasion, while the men reluctantly put on sports coats and sometimes even ties. I was hoping Marcus and Holly would show up. I had briefed Rana on what to expect, so I was looking forward to seeing her outfit for the event. To my surprise and disappointment, she arrived in jeans and a t-shirt. Granted, the jeans were the tightest I'd ever seen, and the t-shirt clung provocatively, but I had expected something different. My expression must have given me away, because she lightly patted my face as she brushed past. You didn't think I'd risk ruining my dress driving over here, did you? Just let me use your bedroom for a bit, and I'll be ready soon. Already dressed in my sports coat and slacks, I fidgeted impatiently in the den while she changed. It feels like we're an old married couple, I mused with a chuckle. A few minutes later, her voice called out, Michael, can you come here? I need your help with something. Heading to the bedroom, I opened the door to find Rana in the most provocative lingerie I'd ever seen. Her deep brown stockings were held up by a garter belt, drawing even more attention to her intimate areas. Facing me again, she asked with a playful smile, How do I look? I couldn't help but move toward her, but she stopped me with a grin and a raised hand. Not now. I need you to stay out of the way so I don't mess this up. Now that you've given me the thumbs up, leave so I can get into my dress. I almost staggered as I walked back to the den. I swallowed hard. You might give someone a heart attack tonight, I told her, and I meant it. She just smiled and offered her arm so I could lead her out. The patio at the club had been transformed for the dance, with paper lanterns hanging above. It was a bit cheesy, but the soft lights and gentle music created a nice atmosphere. Rana slipped into my arms to dance, and I wasn't surprised to find she was a much better dancer than I was. As we danced, she rested her head on my shoulder, and I realized I didn't care about her job. I just enjoyed having her close and spending time with her. She lifted her head and looked at me. You know, living in the suburbs isn't so bad. I could get used to this. Before I could reply, she tensed up. Uh-huh, here comes trouble. I turned just in time to see Marcus Fisher approaching with a clearly unwilling Holly. Hello, Rana. Hello, Michael, he called out loudly. Glad to see you here tonight. How about swapping partners for a dance or two? I agreed, and he whisked Rana away, leaving me with an obviously uneasy Holly. I extended my arms to her. Care for a dance for old time's sake? She agreed reluctantly, and as a new song started, we began to dance. It was a strange experience. I'd loved and been married to this woman for 10 years, but now all I felt was a strong urge to make her feel what she had done to me. So, was our marriage really that bad? I asked. She sighed. No, Michael, it wasn't like that. We had some good years and shared some great times, but eventually things settled into a routine, and I just lost interest in our relationship. When Marcus came along and showed how much he wanted me, I got caught up in it. I really fell hard for him, Michael. It felt just like when I was in college. She gazed up at me. I didn't want to hurt you, Michael, but I had to do what was best for me. Can you understand that? I get it, I replied bitterly. You just wanted an upgrade. That's not how I meant it, she said defensively. That's fine, I said. I've upgraded too. She winced when she thought about who I was now dating, and I felt a bit of satisfaction. If everything went as planned, things would only get better. I looked up to see Marcus and Rana walking toward us, arm in arm. Here's your date back, Michael, Marcus said with a smug smile. Enjoy your night. Then he walked off, with Holly trying to keep up. Rana and I went back to dancing. How did it go? I whispered in her ear. Her voice practically radiated satisfaction. The bait is set, she said. He's convinced him into him. He'll find a reason to leave Holly, and we'll meet up at the clubhouse after everyone's gone. I'm a bit nervous about that. The timing has to be perfect, I told her. Leave that to me. Women are experts at these things. She then licked my ear, making me shudder. As the night wore on, I noticed that the crowd was thinning out quickly. I must have been scanning the room because Rana noticed. Sorry, Michael, she said. It looks like Elma didn't come tonight. Am I that obvious? I asked. Like a glass window, she said with a smile. When we got back to my house, I pulled an envelope from my pocket and handed it to Rana. I might not get a chance to give this to you later, I said, so I wanted to make sure you got it. She took it with a hint of reluctance. After a moment of looking at me, her demeanor changed. The confident seductress was gone, replaced by a genuine though still beautiful woman. This has been the most unusual job I've ever had, she said, and you're unlike any client I've worked with. It's been a bit frustrating at times, I blushed, but I've really enjoyed it. I took her hands in mine. When I started this revenge plan, I knew I needed someone special, I said, but I never imagined finding someone like you. I'll always remember you. Suddenly, I leaned in and kissed her. She lingered for a few seconds before pulling away quickly. She blinked rapidly and said, I need to avoid smudging my lipstick. Then she looked at the watch on her wrist and said, It's almost time. We need to leave. Give me exactly 30 minutes. She then left, got into her car, and drove off. I stood there for a moment and made a decision. Rana and I hadn't discussed this, and I hoped I wasn't messing things up, but I had to take the chance. I pulled out my cell phone. She must have recognized my number right away. Michael, why are you calling so late? Elma, I need a huge favor. Please don't ask questions. Just meet me at the clubhouse in 30 minutes. What's going on, Michael? What's this about? Please, Elma, I pleaded. I can't explain now. Just trust me and come in 30 minutes. Sorry, I have to go. I ended the call. As I walked to the clubhouse, I wondered if she would show up. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance I had. When I got to the parking lot, I saw 2 cars there. I took out my cell phone and made another call. Marcus! Holly's furious voice blared from the phone. Where are you? It's not Marcus, I replied. It's Michael. Michael, what do you want and why are you calling at this hour? She snapped. I'm calling to let you know where Marcus is. Hez with Rana. What? She yelled. Where? Where are they? Listen, I said. Just get to the clubhouse as quickly as you can. Then I ended the call. Marcus' house was a few blocks from the clubhouse, but she must have run because I soon saw her dashing through someone's backyard. I intercepted her before she got to the clubhouse. Where is he? She demanded angrily. Shh, I said, grabbing her wrist. We need to be quiet to catch them. I led her to the clubhouse door, which was unlocked, and we quietly entered. As we stepped into the lounge, we could hear voices and the sound of rustling clothes. Holly's eyes widened when she saw what was happening. I quickly covered her mouth to keep her quiet and pointed to the light switch on the wall. She nodded, and we carefully made our way to it. I flipped the switch, and the room was instantly lit up. Marcus, startled, tried to get up but tripped over his pants, which were around his knees. He fell, then scrambled to his feet, desperately pulling his pants up. Rana, who had been lying on the couch, jumped up. Her dress was draped over the sofa, and she quickly pulled her bra back on. She stood there in nothing but her provocative underwear, making it clear what had been going on. I had to restrain Holly as she began to scream at Marcus. You jerk! How could you do this to me? We're supposed to get married. Rana clung to Marcus' arm, hiding behind him as Holly fumed. Now that Marcus had his pants on, his confidence was back. He looked at me with a daring glance, then turned to Rana and asked, So what do you want to do now, sweetheart? Rana replied in a soft, innocent tone, Oh, Marcus, I just want to be with you. She held him tightly, and he wrapped his arm around her protectively. Then he turned back to face us. Despite Holly's distress, he first addressed me. Looks like you've lost another woman, Michael, Marcus said. I stayed silent, but Holly screamed. What about us, Marcus? What about us? Marcus faced her. Holly, we had a good run, but it wouldn't have lasted. I found someone better, and I'm focusing all my attention on her. He looked back at Rana, then back at Holly. Can you blame a guy for wanting an upgrade? Even in her anger and hurt, Holly couldn't help but glance at me with a look of guilt when she heard that. Rana quickly put on her dress and then wrapped her arms around Marcus' neck. He bent down and kissed her. Let go, baby, he said, pulling her towards the door. Go ahead, Marcus, Rana said. I need to talk to Michael for a bit. Plus, I don't want to leave my car here. She pulled out a piece of paper from her purse and quickly wrote down an address. I'll be right behind you, she said, stroking the front of his pants and giving him a passionate kiss. Marcus looked at her uncertainly. Are you sure you'll be okay? I'm sure, sweetie. Michael won't hurt me. He's not like that. Yeah, Marcus laughed. I guess you're right. He then left through the door, and we heard him drive away. While we were focused on Marcus, Holly slipped out of my hold. You witch! She yelled and charged at Rana with her hands clawing. Instead of backing away, Rana stood firm. When Holly got close, Rana stepped aside, grabbed one of Holly's outstretched arms, and smoothly twisted it behind her back. Rana gave me a wink. I knew those self-defense classes would come in handy. As Holly kept struggling, Rana warned her sharply, If you don't calm down, I'll have to dislocate your shoulder. Holly stopped resisting, and Rana turned her to face her directly. Listen, Holly, there are a few things you need to hear, Rana said. I couldn't care less about your Neanderthal ex-fiance, and I have no intention of meeting him at the bar he's going to. Holly looked confused. But why? Why did you seduce him? That's my job. I'm a paid escort. I've been with dozens of guys like Marcus. They all think they're God's gift to women and are always hunting for the next conquest. Do you really think he loved you? The only thing he truly cared about was finally beating Michael at something. Sure, he enjoyed being with you, but what he really relished was getting back at Michael. Michael hired me to get a bit of revenge on Marcus and to show you how it feels when someone you love is unfaithful. It hurts, doesn't it? Holly screamed and then lunged at me, but before I could respond, Elma appeared and knocked Holly off her feet. Holly fell awkwardly to the ground. Elma stood over her with clenched fists. "You deserve that, Holly. After what you did to Michael, you deserve a lot more." Holly just lay there sobbing. It seemed like her feelings were hurt more than her body. Elma turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Is this really true?" she asked. "Is she really not your girlfriend?" "No," I replied seriously. "She was just part of the honey trap we set for Marcus and Holly. Nothing more." "But she's so stunning," Elma argued. "I could never compete with someone like her." Rana came over and put her hands on Elma's shoulders. "Oh, you poor thing. I was the one who didn't stand a chance. He was always focused on you." Elma glanced at me again. "You mean you never even Rana jumped in again?" "No, Elma, he never did. I could never get him to think about me long enough to actually be with me. And believe me, I tried." Elma was quiet, but her eyes were full of emotion as she looked at me. Rana flashed a grin at both of us. "I think it's time for me to head out. I've had tougher jobs, but this one has really drained me." At that moment, Holly got up from the floor. "What about me? Where do I go now? I can't go back to Marcus's place after all this." Elma considered her for a moment. "I'm not sure what you'll do tomorrow, but you can stay at my place tonight. I'm going home with Michael." Then she gave me a passionate kiss. I took her hand and held on, but something was bothering me, so I turned back to Rana. "What about Marcus? Where did you send him?" She laughed. "I sent him to a gay bar I know. I wonder how long it will take him to figure out I'm not showing up." Her smile faded, and she looked at me with a serious expression. "Good luck, Michael. You're a unique guy, and I won't forget you." She leaned in and gave me a soft kiss. Elma's grip on my hand tightened. Then Rana turned to Elma, her face becoming intense. "You better treat him right. Got it? If I hear you haven't, I'll come back, and I won't take no for an answer." Her fierce look softened into what I later realized was sadness. She touched my cheek gently. "But I don't think I'll get that lucky next time." She reached into her purse and slipped something into my hand. "Goodbye," she said, then turned and walked out, her hips swaying gracefully. I looked at my hand and saw 4 unopened envelopes.